Special thanks to the Sportsman's Guide for helping us out and bringing you today's video. More on them later. What's up, everybody? Thanks for joining us here today on the VSO Gun Channel. We're continuing our 30 days of VSO, which is basically our push to 200,000 subscribers here on YouTube. So if you're not subbed up to the VSO Gun Channel, make sure you smash that subscribe button and ring that bell so that you guys will know next time I have a silly idea for a video. Well, we've seen it all in the headlines the last couple days. A judge has struck down the California high capacity magazine, or as I would call them, or we would call them here in the free states, standard capacity magazines. But nonetheless, their magazine ban has been struck down. We don't know how long this will last, but I'm sure that there's a huge buying craze out there over across the California border. So I thought that I would take a look at the various magazines that we've had roll through here over the years, because this is probably the first time some of you guys have been able to reach out across state lines and purchase these things. So maybe we can give you guys some information so you can make informed decisions on those devices. So that said, we're going to keep this limited to, like I said, what I consider standard capacity, which is 30 rounds or comparable capacity in various calibers. So we'll start off with AR and then we'll move across the board. So first off, I'll say that I'm a Metal Mag fanboy. Okay, so we're just going to get that out of the way. So we're going to start with Metal Mags, and my choice is C Products. So this is what we would consider our standard GI magazine. You can see it's got the green follower there, and this is like what we would consider original issue, if you will, and in fact it even says that on the bottom of it. This magazine is one of the reasons why the AR-15 was initially given its unreliability status, if you will, and the reason why is that this follower, as you can see, can tilt. Well, what is currently available is the C Products Duramag, which is basically the same magazine with some improvements in it. So you can see they look very similar, and I'll have some close-ups here for you guys. But what has been done with this magazine is a 4-dimension anti-tilt follower has been added to this magazine so that it will not do that crap on you, so rounds will not dive. So if you can avoid getting standard GI magazines, then see if you can get them with the upgraded followers. Now, these things can be retrofitted with some of the Magpul equipment. They sell anti-tilt followers for these magazines if you must buy them. However, it's almost cheaper as far as your time and just to buy them as is. Now these Loud Bang. Now these things come in basically two main variants: the steel body magazine and the aluminum body magazine. Steel versus aluminum. That's really the only major difference. That being the weight. So the steel magazine is going to be more rugged. It's going to be heavier than the aluminum magazine. Now that said, along with that, we do have some interesting things that can be done with aluminum, right? So the C Products Duramag is now available in a variety of colors, including blue, pink, green, tan, a few others that I did not mention, but you can do interesting things with this thing, and that thing is actually quite pretty. The VSO Mud Girl has a pink one as well. Without the loops on there, the steel magazine comes right out. The Polymer Magazine, by contrast, will bind on the ribs. Alrighty guys, moving on from the metal stuff onto the plasticky stuff, and we're going to lead off with a magazine that many would consider to be the industry standard, although I'll say that I consider the metal stuff to be industry standard, but nonetheless, Magpul PMag. And this is a windowed variant magazine, and what that means is that we have a window there. They are available non-windowed, and I believe that the windowed variants are a little bit more expensive. This is, I believe, a Gen 2 magazine. Now, I will admit that I've not kept up on the various iterations in between the various current production and this magazine because I don't use them, to be honest. But what I do have here is a new production AUG magazine, and this has all the features on it that we need to talk about anyway. So I'll just cover up all the AUG geometry there on the front, and you can see right away that on the new production stuff we've got some more aggressive ribbing on both sides of the magazine and a designation grid there. So if you want to write the number on it, you've got a space that's kind of countersunk so that the paint will sink down inside of it, if you will, and it'll last longer. They come in a variety of colors these days, and to be honest, I stopped using them because bullets fly out of them when you drop them on the ground. And I've also seen that cause issues if you hit the gun off something really hard, or if you insert them too hard. Basically, you can ghost around, creates all kinds of functionality issues inside your gun. So I just like, yeah, no, we'll not deal with that. And I'm not going to cite them or anything because I don't want to create any adversity there. But a particular precision rifle manufacturer brought to my attention that the Magpul PMag is possibly, not definitively, but possibly the worst magazine on the market for accuracy. And these things are really easy to load. They're easier to load than your standard steel magazine, but that makes them also very easy to unload. As we mentioned, the dropping them on the ground and the spewing of rounds out of them, that sort of thing, also plays a role when we're talking about getting the round from the magazine into the breech, and it can jack up the jacket a little bit given depending on how the gun is interacting with the magazine. So that's just something you should be aware of. All right, that's enough about the PMag. They don't need my help anyway, but we'll move on to a competitor. This is the Hex Mag, and you can see why it's called the Hex Mag. It's got a bunch of hexagons joined, and that's where it gets its name from. So it's also got some aggressive stippling there on both sides, so it can be forcibly extracted should you experience a double feed or anything like that. These magazines are actually the Generation 2, and you can see that they survived our 2018 testing, some very exhaustive testing that we ran these things through, and they did pretty good. However, although they were flawless on 5.56 through the entire testing across multiple guns, they don't do very well on long overall length 300 blackout, and that is what actually forced us to DQ the magazine for our continuous use. And for anybody who's not tracking, if you're making a round heavier, so the projectile heavier, you've got two options. Because the diameter of the bullet is set and is locked in, that dimension cannot change because that's the caliber, you have two choices, which is either change the alloy to a heavier alloy. We don't like that because we like our bullets cheap. And the second option then, therefore, is to make it longer. Well, when you make it longer, you make the overall length. You kind of push the limit there. And because of the curve of this magazine, we get some binding at the front. And that can be an issue, can cause functionality issues. You shoot a lot of subsonic ammunition here, so this just wouldn't work for our purpose. Now, if you're looking for a magazine that is great for 5.56, and this is a pretty decent magazine. Loads relatively easily, but it does not have some of the issues that we mentioned with the PMag, with the expelling of lots of bullets if you drop it on the ground type thing. So we approve it there. And it has one of those anti-tilt followers on there that we mentioned previously, only this one's specifically designed for this magazine body. So that is the Hex Mag. Moving on now to what I would consider my pick for feature-rich magazine, if you will, and that is the Mission First Tactical Extreme Duty magazine. We beat the ever-living heck out of these magazines. We did a pretty exhaustive test with these mags before they launched. Now, there was some banter out there. You guys have to realize that this is the Extreme Duty magazine. This is not the Generation 1 magazine. So this is the Gen 2 magazine. They've taken user feedback and they've implemented changes in the magazine to make sure that this is a high quality magazine. So if we're looking at it real quick, we got a grid on the bottom to basically write our designation, dual locking tabs on the bottom, a C-clamp grip, if you will, extraction tab there so that it's got really aggressive stippling, so if you're grabbing onto it, it's on both sides. It'll grip your glove or your finger. It's swollen at the bottom so that if you've got it kind of gripped like this, it can't really slip out that way because it just flares, right? That makes sense, sort of, I think. Aggressive ribbing there on the back and front of the magazine, over insertion tab, and 4-dimensional anti-tilt follower in the magazine. It's a pretty solid mag, and now offered from the factory, they're doing custom laser engraving for you. These actually came from my Thunder Buddy came with the magazines with the bear on there, but you can get your own design on there if you so choose. These are not offered in window. Neither are the hex mags, but I have seen some creative things with the hex mag where people have literally dremeled out one of the hexagons so they can see inside of it. Me personally, I don't think that it's really necessary to have that window on the side of it, because when you're shooting, you're not staring at the magazine anyway. So now would be an opportune time to talk about the Sportsman's Guide. I've been using the Sportsman's Guide for years. I mean, since I was a teenager. We got the magazines at my parents' house. I mean, not like the magazines that we're talking about here today, the actual physical magazine that you read. And they have morphed that into just an excellent online store that's fully stocked with all kinds of different equipment, whether it's outdoor gear or cleaning supplies or even magazines. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to have links in the description box down below where you guys can go over to the Sportsman's Guide. Special thanks to them for helping us out today and bringing you guys this video. Next, Polymer Mag, and this one actually is good because this is indicative of what they do. This is an ETS magazine, and they have a couple different variants with some different colors and stuff like that in there. This one does say right on it, unlike the other ones, that this is good for 300 blackout. However, I have found that that is not really the case. Especially the long overall length stuff, it just does not seem to play nice, and these things come completely clear from the factory. They do offer a smoke variant. This is not a smoke variant, and as you can see, this is kind of what happens to them after they've sat out in the sun or get exposed to the elements over a long period of time. I'm not saying this is a bad magazine by any stretch of the imagination, but the one thing I will say is that the anti-tilt follower on this thing, while it's pretty good, it does get dirtied up quite easily, and I don't know why that is. I think it has to do with these wide flowing flaring tabs on the side, but for whatever reason, this magazine will need cleaned more often than, say, the Extreme Duty mag that we just mentioned. Alrighty guys, moving on from the pure plasticky stuff to the hybrid magazine in the Lancer L5. I've heard you guys asking me, several of you, to test the Lancer L5 magazine. We may get to it, okay? We might get there. But I call this a hybrid magazine because the feed lips are made of steel. And they almost need to be made of steel because, in my opinion, the polymer is a little bit thin and it feels rather plasticky, and that is the only real gripe I have of this magazine. It comes in a variety of colors, as you can see, some non-clear variants and some clear variants that this one's red. They make a clear, a blue, a purple. I'm probably missing some other ones, but you get the idea. The magazine feed lips, as you can see, kind of come up around the sides there to hold those in place. They do not wrap around to the front. And by all accounts, this is a pretty decent magazine. It has a strike plate on the bottom. And as you can see, basically the high friction areas, the high intensity areas of the magazine are made of something other than the body of the magazine. And that's my real gripe about the magazine. Although I will say that it makes the best, as far as I have seen, 458 SOCOM magazine. So if you are still living in one of those banned states that you can't get them, your secret is that you get it as a 458 SOCOM magazine, write 458 SOCOM on it, and this holds 10 458 rounds instead of 30 of these. So, pro tip.
I think that we have maximum penetration.
So the reason we did that one last was it actually walks us into the AK magazines, and these are really my two picks for AK magazines. So if you're looking to be an AK guy, what we've got here is the Magpul PMag, and it looks fairly reminiscent of the AR PMag, only it's designed for an AK-47. Now, again, the reason we did that is because did the Lancer last is because we're going to have a contrast here. The feed lips on this magazine are molded, so these are plastic. Magnet, all plastic, no attachment. Versus like something like this Bulgarian magazine, which is also a polymer magazine, but the lips are steel. So that is a user preference, and that's going to be the main difference between your AK mags. I personally am a polymer person because the steel magazines are heavy, okay? They just create an issue with weight. The ammunition for 7.62 by 39 is already heavier, so dealing with the polymer magazine and the shortcomings of the polymer magazine kind of offsets the weight a little bit. So that is something you have to keep in mind. But again, the Bulgarian magazine is going to have metal inserts in there that allow you to kind of abuse the magazine more than the PMag. Over the course of my career, I've gone through probably 20 of these where I've just absolutely shredded out lips. I've never broken a Bulgarian magazine. Just throwing that out there. All right, guys, we're moving in on the home stretch here, and we're going to move to 308. So what I have here is a PMag and an SR25 mag. These are commonly referred to as SR25 PMags. Okay, these are a real SR25 mag. You can see the difference there. These are for 308 rifles, particularly AR-10s and the like. Unfortunately, I cannot tell you which one to buy because I have rifles in this room that will run on this magazine. And then I have rifles in this room that will run on this magazine. Some of them will run on both. Some of them will run on one and not the other. So unfortunately, you're gonna have to buy them and try them in your rifle yourself. There's no rhyme or reason to it. I cannot find a correlation between the spec of the rifle, whether it's a high or low. For whatever reason, it's an individual manufacturer issue. I guess that could be one of your issues for not going with 308. But again, the C products, SR25 mag, and then the 7.62 by 51 PMag. You get a few more features on the PMag with a designation grid, some ribbing there, but metal, right? These both have anti-tilt followers on them, so that's not something that you have to work around or anything like that, and it's really, again, your user preference. So I hope that this video helped some of you out there. If it did, make sure you smash that subscribe button down below, subscribe to the VSO Gun Channel, and make sure you turn those notifications on. And also, it really helps me out if you guys share this video. So maybe all you guys out there in Cali, maybe you share it with your friends and bring them into the fold here at the VSO Gun Channel. I'd greatly appreciate it. Again, I hope that you learned something, and hopefully we'll see you guys here on a future video.